Successful leaders take the success formula and apply it to the team concept. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And this is the second part of a concept that we're talking about in terms of leadership, which is applying the success formula to the team concept. And the why and because that we got started with this was the statistic that 70% of the workforce is unhappy in their work. Why is that? Don't you think that's a worthwhile subject to examine? Now, to give you a brief review of what we talked about on Project Eli last time we got together was, number one, first of all these words begin with V. I thought that would be cool. The V. All right? First of all, focus on a vision, individually and as a team. Second, you have to have a virtue for your vision, a why and because, both as an individual and as a team. When the team grasps that, then they're willing to work for more than a paycheck. You have to have, number three, a viable stretch of the comfort zone, just as you do as an individual in order to be successful. The individual has to reach just a little bit beyond their grasp to make some significant progress. Same thing is true in the team concept. Number four, you have to view it every day. It has to be something that's in your face. Now, as an individual, every day you give yourself some quiet thinking time where you see the outcome, you visualize the end result, your magnificent obsession. You're continuously feeding your brain, brainwashing yourself to have that singleness of purpose, that single focus. As a team, as a leader, you can't sit there and hold a weapon to somebody's head and say, hey, I want you to take some thinking time. So what do you do instead? Well, you put it in their face in different ways, using as many senses as possible. You have posters, you have visuals, you have sayings, you put it in emails, you put it all over the place. You have a scoreboard showing what progress you made. All the different aspects of the vision, the ultimate goal that you have, you put it in their face. And then when you do that, then it becomes repetition means retention. And when people are in casual states, when they're driving home, when they see a sign, when a road sign, a billboard, that's a word for road sign, a billboard, they'll put things together that relate to the vision. And that's how ideas come into force. They come in obtuse ways. They don't always come in logical ways. They come as mind flashes. And it come when people, a lot of times, when people are in a casual state of being. So what you want to do is keep that in their face, and then that will be their focus. And number five, we talked about verbiage. Verbiage is critical. Another word for verbiage with people is the feedback. We pointed out how feedback has kind of a negative connotation. Oh, he's getting feedback. All right, well, feedback should be positive. As a matter of fact, we talked about the ratio, the appropriate ratio being 5 or 6 to 1 in favor of positive feedback versus negative feedback. Mark Twain, who Eli, I didn't know him personally, but I heard about him. Mark Twain once said that he could live on a good compliment for about 2 months. So will your workforce. We pointed out how little kids get enthusiastic when they get a compliment, when they get positive feedback. It encourages them. And that little kids grow up to be big kids and grow up to be adults. It works in the workplace as well. So that's where we left it off very briefly. I recommend, if you haven't seen part one, go back and see part one because you want to get more of those details. Let's move on to the second part, where we're talking, there's essentially 10 different steps. We talked about the first 5. This one's number 6. In the success formula, volume, once again, all these are V words, volume of activity. As an individual, if you want to succeed, you've got to take massive action. When you take massive action, you start to see different kind of results. They're not all positive, but at least it gives you a direction. So if you take massive action and you get negative results, that tells you, yo, dude, I have to go in a different direction. You have to use a different paradigm, a different angle to get the job done. You have to think out of the box. You have to think differently. Sometimes logic isn't, you have to change your logic, so to speak, right? And that will give you a new advanced starting line every day when you take that massive action. The same thing that's true for the individual. Guess what, Eli? It's also true of the team. You want your team taking massive action. There are going to be mistakes made, and you know what? That's a good thing, because when mistakes get made and they see the way that you as the leader handle them and say, okay, that's feedback. Make feedback your teacher, not your undertaker. We've learned that that's not the way it's going to go. Who can come up with a different way that's going to make this thing really happen? And you're going to inspire people. So if you want to succeed, you need to fail more often. You learn more from failure and take massive action. That's both as an individual, of course, part of the success formula. Apply that to the workplace, for the team. That's the way it works as well. And when you're working, you want to have a tremendous amount of velocity, speed. Why? Because velocity creates momentum, big mo. You as an individual, if you have a little bit of success, you're inspired, you're encouraged, you're motivated. I'm going to do more, I want to do more, I want to do more. That's the way you want. The same thing works in the workplace. Once the team sees that it's making a little progress, guess what? They get inspired exactly the same way. Momentum is so key in all elements of success. Once again, both as an individual and as a team. The example we always use is a train going down the track 100 miles an hour. You put a block of wood, boom, it goes right through it. But if the train is standing still, you put that same little block in front of one of the wheels, the train ain't going no place, my friend. You've got to get momentum. So you want to get movement. You want to get positive movement. You want to encourage people like, yes, we're making progress. Look at how far we've come. Here's the scoreboard. See how far we've come. We are making progress. We just need to get a little bit more. Let's chunk it down. Let's do a little bit more today. You want to get momentum. Key element in both the individual success and the team success. The 8th point, victory parades. Now here's one that you kind of do for yourself. When I achieve something, I hope when you achieve something, you kind of, you don't want, as my dad used to say, I hope you're not going to break your arm patting yourself on the back, but you give yourself a little pat on the back. Nice job, Eli's dad. All right, and you give yourself a little pat on the back. You have a little celebration, and you get, an extra slice of pizza or whatever it is that you do, and you're having that celebration. But you want to celebrate. You want to have some victory parades. Now, under the same umbrella is you want to have something physical. And once again, this is a science. It works both negatively and positively. Let me give you an example. When you see athletes, basketball players, baseball players, football players, what are they doing to create the bond, to create the little victory parade? They give them the high fives. They do the high fives. People in the army, the salute. Even Nazi Germany had the Heil Hitler sign. So it works both positively and negatively. You want to have something that kind of bonds the identity of the group in a positive way. When somebody works for, let's take a company that has pretty fair reputation, Apple Computer. Oh, I work for Apple. They're proud of that. Years ago, my brother-in-law used to work for IBM, and he always got that into the conversation somehow. He worked for, and back then IBM was a company of significant status. Now, I'm not saying they're not now, but I'm saying back then, they were the bar. Okay, you worked for IBM. It was like, whoa, Johnny, you're doing a good job. Okay, you're a smart dude. All right? And so, when people work with an organization that is the bar, let's say. I have a friend, I speak of him often on these videos, and he went to Harvard. My dad went to Harvard, okay? That's something that, Harvard is looked upon. Harvard, MIT. I mean, there are other schools like that. Stanford. You know, the people that are the bar, and they that's an identity that they have. You know, one of the things that I remember, and Eli, you can relate to this. You know, you play ball, you play basketball, you play baseball. You know, in the park, and you're just wearing, you know, clothes that you don't mind if they get dirty. But then when you get on a team, you get the uniform. The uniform! Well, you remember when you got your first uniform? I went to the Edward Devotion School. And so what did I have proudly across my chest? Devotion. Boy, but I like to have that across my chest now. Devotion. He's devoted. All right? So I would wear the uniform, and people at the school would wear devotion. He's devoted. Now, it kind of brings up a different topic to me when I think about that. Edward Devotion was one of the places where, not Paul Revere, but William Dawes, he was also one of the riders that rode, you know, to let people know that the British were coming. Edward, that's, you know, how old Brookline is, the town that I'm from. There was the Edward Devotion House, which still stands, and so he was one of the citizens, and they went to warn him, the British are coming, the British are coming, you know, it was part of Boston. And they found out recently, within the last few years, that Edward Devotion owned slaves. So they changed the name of the school to be politically correct. Hello, McFly. When you live in certain times, some things that are acceptable back then may not be acceptable now. Slavery being an obvious one. Are we going to change the name of the Jefferson Memorial because Thomas Jefferson owned slaves? You follow what I'm saying? It's like you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes 200 years ago or 300 years ago and take what you're thinking, your politically correct things, and because some things were more acceptable back then than they are today. It doesn't mean that the man shouldn't be admired. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't have the school named for him. So once again, talk about, like, let's not make mountains out of molehills. Let's keep our eyes on the big picture. All right? So anyway, once again, you want to have things in your group that bind you. Now, Eli, I send you to that camp in Maine that I used to go to, that I was a counselor at West End House, and all the time at the end of any kind of event, what do? They sing the house song, and everybody sings. Everybody sings the house song. All right? The spirit of the house will never die. So that when you have, you know, you have a secret handshake, you have, I mean, there's all sorts of different things in your business, in your organization. Have something physical that binds people together. Have something physical. That will help. It will help create the identity. All right. Number 9. Let's talk about you, the leader. As the leader, you are the conductor of the orchestra. And so you want to be a virtuoso, and you want to conduct people so that the chemistry is exactly right. You want to have the horn section, okay, they need to lower their volume so that we can hear the woodwinds, and now the percussion set. You know what it takes to be an effective conductor. You have to have the chemistry of the entire orchestra fine-tuned, to be a master chemist, bonding unique elements. You have to have the most powerful set of binoculars so that you can envision positive change. People from the rank and file tend to be very focused on their individual function, as they should be. As they should be. And you, as the leader, should find it necessary to make sure that what's getting done is not just being done efficiently, but effectively. And that takes a virtuoso to see the big picture, to see how everything focuses on the big picture. Once again, it's a science. The people that are performing the function, the masses that are doing the little bits and pieces, It's not necessary that they understand the why and because of the success formula, but it's important that they perform the functions, because as a science, like gravity, it works without prejudice, it works all the time. Make sure that they keep their foot on the gas so that the car will continue to move forward. They don't have to know how the engine works. You know, Christopher Columbus said, you can never cross the ocean until you've lost sight of the shore. The people that are the rank and file, the masses, are always looking at the shore. It's the leaders that have to have the big set of binoculars, a telescope, to see over and beyond the horizon. That's how you help create visions, and that's how you make significant progress. So the same, and that's true as an individual and it's true as a team, but you as the leader have to embrace that. So become a virtuoso. And number 10, we want to talk about value. What you're doing has to create value. And I have a couple of quotes here to kind of sum this up. One is from my very favorite, Albert Einstein, who says, strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. And what I derive from that is there are so many companies, there are so many leaders that are focused on statistics instead of being focused upon what it is they're in business to do. If you're there to serve the public, then don't create statistics or don't focus on statistics with attendance. You know, people come in. All right, so it's good that they come in, but are the people getting something out of it? Are they getting the thing out of it that they're supposed to, you know, get? Is your business performing? Just because somebody shows up doesn't mean they get it. If you focus on what the why and because your business is there in the first place, the statistics will follow. But too many people do it bass-ackward, where they focus on getting the statistics and spend less time or little time on focus on the why and because they're there. Does that make sense? You see that so often. And the last thing I want to talk to you about, not the last thing, well, the last thing I want to talk to you about comes from former Vice President Joe Biden. And I quote, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value." All right, so how you spend your money, how you focus, and when we say your money, we're talking about assets. So when you talk about values, now what are your assets? One of your biggest assets is your time. Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your time? That shows what you value. Follow what I'm saying? Okay, so we've gone over 10 different V words here. And vision, virtue, the why and because, viable, stretch your comfort zone, view it every day, verbiage, the proper feedback, volume of activity, take massive action, velocity, creating momentum, victory parade, something positive, something physical that binds the group together. Remember, devotion across my chest. Today people would have it as a tattoo. Number 9, be a virtuoso, the conductor of the orchestra as the leader. All right, be the master chemist, put all the pieces together where you're focusing on the strengths and minimizing the weaknesses. And finally, number 10, create the value. Once again, we're focused on using the success formula, applying it to leadership. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you. That's what the leader does. It's not essential that the masses understand the why and because of the formula. What's essential is they perform the functions. And when they perform the functions after it's done, then you can explain to them, see, this is a success formula. This is why it worked. This is what I did. This is what you did. And this is how we got from point A to point B to point C. And because we will never end our meeting on a philosophical note, let's educate, lead, and inspire. Let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.